This is Rick Wilson with PowerApps Raw, and today I'm going to guide you through creating an app with the new PDF form filler for Canvas component that I've created. Hope this helps. So let's take a quick look at this PDF form we're going to tie to the contact entity. A couple fields here. We have name, which is just a text field, same with email. Contact email, which is a radio button set, and I've made them a set by having the same names on them. I can double click on here and the values on what's going to set this radio button. In this case, it's allow. In this case, it's do not allow. And those are going to match up to the option set values you have in Dynamics and the data you pass in. I have a checkbox here, and you can see I have the option. The export value is yes, so that'll determine whether or not that gets checked. Payment options, again, this is another option set that's coming in. This is a drop-down box in the form, and I've set the different values based on the option set values. So I have like net 30, net 45, net 60, and last but not least, the photo. This is a button object in the PDF form, and whenever you use a button and you pass in a base64 string image of JPEG or PNG, we will go ahead and replace this button with that image. The first thing we need to do is set up our PDF template now that we've generated it. You put it in a web resource and bring back a CDS collection of those web resources to get that data, that base64 string. One of the little tricks I like to do though is just use the little media objects that are available now in here. So I just go to images. And basically all I do is rename my PDF to .jpg so that it'll show up in here. Just create a copy of it and rename it. So I'm going to choose template.jpg. Going to go ahead and load that media up. The first thing I'm going to do in my app is go to my app, ONSTART, and put in my variables, my startup variables. Because see here I have output PDF. This is will be the actual contents of the PDF when they're generated. The output PDF file name, which I'll change every time you click on a contact. The contact image, which will hold the base64 of the contact image. Template base64, this is actually the data from the template I uploaded, and you can see I got that base64 string by doing JSON and then put in the template object and include binary data. And finally, I have two objects which are going to be triggers, one for the component, which is fill PDF, and one for a toggle I'm going to use to ensure things happen synchronously and not asynchronously. I'm going to be using contact data to fill my PDF, so I'm going to add a quick vertical gallery here. I'm going to attach to contacts. I'm going to choose my Creekcast view just to keep it a little simple. Move that up here. And I need to set the image here. So I'm going to go click on here. Click on there. I have a custom entity, a custom image that I did. So I'm just going to set that to custom photo.value. Get that to show up. And I need to add a button. So I'm going to add a little PDF button in here that's just going to launch our PDF. And there we go. We have our contact data. I'm going to also add a PDF viewer on here so we can see the output of our PDF once it's completed. And I'm going to set the document on there to one of our app variables, the output PDF. So we'll see that when the component actually outputs it. Next, I'll add an image control to hold the contact image data so that it's easy for us to convert into a base64 string. So on here, I'm just going to set the image attribute to another one of our variables, that contact image that we created. Go ahead and set that. We'll add a toggle to the form. This toggle is to help ensure that some of our triggers happen synchronously and not asynchronously, which can kind of be a problem in a lot of these Canvas apps. So I'm going to update my onCheck function to set these two variables back to one to false and my PDF fill to true, so that'll ensure that gets done. And I'm also going to change the default for this to another one of our fill PDF checked. So this will ensure that this gets unchecked after the check happens. So it'll just be check and uncheck. To get our data to our component, we're going to be using this PDF button that we created. So I'm going to double click, and on my select, I'm going to change that and create a collection within here. So one of the things I'm going to do is, let me change this to image 4. All right, so you can see here, I'm setting the contact image. I'm getting the contact image of this item. I'm setting that image control with the JSON, and I'm also creating this variable here called image JSON. And this is going to give me the base 64 string of that image. The output PDF file name, you can see I'm just taking the full name of the person, .pdf, and concatenating those two together. And then I'm creating my collection that's actually going to fill this PDF. You can see here it's just a JSON collection. I have these variables for each object, name and data. They do have to be just like this. Name will be the name of the field in your PDF. Data will be the data you want to fill that PDF field with. This is all case sensitive too, so name has to be lowercase and the data has to be lowercase. So just ensure you make it just like this. And then at the end, I'm setting that toggle switch to PDF to true so that it'll toggle and then call my component in the end to actually fill the PDF. We need to finally add the PDF form fill component to the form, and we'll start doing that by clicking on Insert, Custom, Import Component. We'll click on the Code tab. And if you don't have this code tab here, you probably need to enable it. In the README file for this, you'll have a link that'll show you how to do that. So I'll click on there. Click on the raw PDF form fill. Make sure you have the one that has Canvas on it. I will be putting one out there for model apps, so make sure you get the right one. Click on Import. It's going to import that component into your PowerApps Maker Studio. And after you get that component, you can click on Add, and you'll see it show up on the Code Components area. And you can click and drag over. Finally, we're going to be updating the properties of the PDF form filler component that we dropped on the form. So I'm going to start by just renaming it. I like to do this because these names are super long and hard to read. So I'll just call it raw form filler for our control name. My onChange event, so every time this control gets, this component gets updated, it'll actually output our final PDF to that output PDF variable that we set. Then I need to set our template, and this is the variable that we had set up in our app ONSTART. So I'm going to set that to template base 64. Fill PDF, we need to set this to our variable, which will be set. So when it gets set to true, that'll be our trigger to get this thing going. So I'll do fill PDF in there. And last but not least, we need to fill in the items with the test collection that we actually made every time we click the PDF. And what this will do is every time you click a different PDF button, that clear collect will go in and create a new collection and pass this to the component. And then on the onChange, it'll actually output that back to our variable. One last thing before you test is that the PDF viewer sometimes gets a little weird. So what I would suggest is after you've created your app, before you start clicking on the PDF buttons, is to make sure you go back, save your app, and then actually do a full close from the Maker Studio before you actually do your testing. We can click back on Open, PDF fill for sample. The one we created. We'll go ahead and let it load again. We'll open the app, say yes, it's okay that we're loading an external component. Then we can go ahead and click on our buttons here, play the app. See Alexis comes up. Again, you could hide these image and toggle fields. It won't make a difference. You can click on PDF, click on some of these other buttons, and there we go. We got a simple app that fills out a PDF form with based on contact data we've included. So hope this really helps you out. It's a great way to do it without having to use a premium connector, and hopefully it's pretty easy for you. Thanks a lot.